I just wanted to follow up on that in English. I mean, you say that Pierre Poilievre's opinions don't represent the majority of Canadians, but if he wins a majority government, I think that statement might be tested. So how is this plan worth more than the paper that it's written on if you can't enshrine it, there's no parliament, and there's no way to actually get this through?
Well, this is why it's so important for me to complete my mandate letter by proposing this very clear plan for the future of the CBC, because it's now or never the time for any person who wants to be the next prime minister to commit to making sure that we have a viable public broadcaster for the next century. And there's going to be a leaders' debate next week for who's going to be the next leader of the Liberal Party, who's going to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. And I think it's important that we stop talking about defunding or funding CBC and we talk about a vision and a plan for the future of the CBC, what it could mean for Canadians, especially at a time where we know that our means of communications are controlled in most parts by tech billionaire oligarchs in the United States. More than ever, it's important for Canadians to be able to rely on their own sources of information made by and for Canadians. Radio-Canada CBC has been there for the past 100 years through conservative and liberal governments. It is more relevant than ever in the current context to have and to be able to rely on a public service media. And to not understand that reality shows the lack of understanding of the global context that we're in. And it shows the lack of love for our own country and for the fact that we need to be able to tell our own stories in our own way. And Radio-Canada CBC will never be controlled by Musk, Zuckerberg, or any other private billionaire tech oligarch.
Next question, Racy Rafik, CBC.
You're talking about this $62 per person per capita. What kind of dollar figure are you looking at for CBC funding if you go down this route? And can the country afford that?
I think we need to envision the investments that we're making in our public broadcaster as a national security issue. We know that our sovereignty is more than ever an issue that Canadians are preoccupied about. We know that we're being asked to invest more in national defense, in our borders, but protecting Canadian sovereignty also implies investing in our means of communication and in being able to resist a foreign influence. And therefore, I think that the vision that I'm proposing for the future of CBC should be included in any kind of plan that the next government puts forward when it comes to protecting Canada against the current global context. Now, about the precise amount, I think that there's anything that we can do to improve public funding for the public broadcaster will be welcome and will be used to make sure that they completely fulfill their current mission, but that they are also capable of fulfilling the additional mandate that I'm proposing to give them. So yes, the middle ground for the G7 country is $62 per year. I think we can aim for something that's closer to that. It can be 50, it can be 55. It's for the next leader to decide. And I'm also proposing that it be planned, that the increase be elaborated for a few years, for example, for 5 or 7 years, to make sure that the investments are well thought and that the growth is planned according to the new mandates that the CBC will have to fulfill.
Speaking on the next leader, there's a lot that is being focused on right now in the leadership race. They're talking about tariffs, security, affordability. Do you have a sense that they will carry this through and that this is a priority when there's a lot of other things that are kind of the key focus right now?
I'm expecting any candidate that wants to be leader of the Liberal Party to be in agreement with the type of vision that I'm proposing, because we can no longer just say that we're allies or friends of the public broadcaster and not give it the appropriate capacity to be the public broadcaster that Canadians love and trust, especially if we want to make sure that it's relevant for the next 100 years. We know that we need to adapt its mandate. We know that we need to make sure that it's well anchored in today's reality, even if it's just because of the technology and the evolution of technology. So I'm expecting that this be positively received, especially because it's been in our electoral platform for years to modernize the CBC and to properly fund it. And this is exactly what I'm proposing.
Answers. Next question, Marie Wolf, Globe and Mail.
Yeah, thanks. You're proposing to effectively double the amount of money that CBC gets based on per capita, which is the number of people in Canada. But actually, the number of people watching CBC is going down. Should it not actually be based on the number of people who are viewing it?
Well, first of all, I don't think that we should only rely on television statistics, because it does not reflect the habits of the Canadian population, who are more and more online to consume their news, to consume their culture, music, dramas, all of it. So we need to stop referring to television only when we're talking about how many Canadians go on CBC Radio-Canada. This is like a 90s vision. We need to consider the fact that more people than ever are listening to CBC radio across the country, and also on different platforms of the CBC. And I'm not putting a precise amount on the table, because it needs to be decided by the next leader and by the next finance minister. But I am proposing to bring it closer to the other G7 countries than to the United States.
And as a follow-up, how was your proposal to increase the funding so dramatically received within the current government? I gathered that it was discussed. Was it considered too much? And are you confident that this will be adopted as an election platform by the Liberal Party?
I don't think that, the Liberal Party, and I entered politics partly because of that, has always been supportive of the CBC. And Prime Minister Trudeau gave back the funding that was cut by the previous government, by the Harper government. But we all know that the CBC must be modernized so that it remains relevant for the next century. So this needs to be done. And also the funding has not increased since the 1990s, even with inflation or the rise of the cost of production. So yes, we've maintained a very good public broadcaster, but it's time to look into the future and to stop being in the position that we need to choose between having a CBC that most Canadians want to see improve or completely defunding the CBC. This is a complete roadmap to renewing our commitment to our public broadcaster and to give it back to Canadians so that they know that it's theirs, that they can trust their public broadcaster, and that they can rely on it in emergency situations and in the global context, where we know that the means of communications are dominated by tech oligarchs, billionaires, the most powerful men on the planet. Not only control the money, not only are they sometimes in control of some of the governments, but they also control the way that they can influence the entire planet. Canadians deserve to know that they have their own Canadian source of information, of culture, of language, and of existence.
Paul Park, Wire Report.
Where does Radio Canada International fit into these plans?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm hoping, and we need to understand where my jurisdiction lies, and how the independence of the public broadcaster works. So by giving it the financial capacity to fulfill their current mission and mandate, and by giving them additional responsibilities, but giving them the means to be able to do that, I'm expecting that it orients how some of the priorities in terms of investments are made. And of course, in the current context, we know that there's a lot of geopolitical instability and that Canadians should rely on a Canadian source of information to understand the world. And therefore, I'm expecting that with more financial capacity, that there be a better presence of CBC Radio-Canada internationally.